Hello friends, today we are going to start with the next part of this particular chapter, that is study of flower. Flower, definitely when we pronounce a word flower, we always start thinking about the colorful, beautiful and fragranceful reproductive part of a plant where you can find enormous diversity. Let there be a plant of orchid or let there be a plant of hibiscus. Every time you will find certain variation, you will find certain development or peculiarities in various different species. Now, this particular session is all about how this particular device, deliberately I am using the word device, is closely associated with the overall plant life, because it always plays an important role in reproduction, carrying out progeny through various steps, and definitely giving rise to the or spreading the population all over the available area. So this particular device, that is flower, is interestingly studied by many botanists. Let me tell you in the beginning itself, this particular flower is nothing but the modified shoot. What do you mean by shoot? So whatever the leaf part is available with the plant, initially when we consider the examples of algae, that time we can say flowers were not present. In case of bryophytes, flowers were not present. In case of pteridophytes, even then flowers were absent. Now you should think about why and where these flowers appear. So is there anything else which can be justified that this particular structure has been evolved as a flower? No. Basically, this particular leaf part was initially, it started developing. So whatever the shoot part was available with surrounded with the leaves, I am not talking about the phyllotaxy and what type of leaf arrangement was there, but simply when evolution started, that time a specific part, specific bunch of leaves, they become condensed. Whatever the stem was present, suppose this much stem which was laid with the leaves, so initially it become condensed. Then plants realize that there should be some organ, there should be some device which can introduce a variation in the population. When we talk about a typical vegetative type of reproduction, if leaf is involved, if stem is involved, or any other plant part, if it is involved in the reproduction other than the flower, then it becomes vegetative, that is asexual type of reproduction, where you can expect the genetic makeup of parents will be similar to that of the offspring, because offspring or the daughters or the daughter plants which are getting originated from this particular parent plant, mother plant, you can say. So genetic makeup will be similar because there is no chance of cross pollination, there is no chance of mixing of genes. Try to recall the overall meiosis process, diplotin, pachytin, dikinesis. Do you remember that? So that particular process is responsible for crossing over and absolutely for variation. Unless and until there is some crossing over, or what I can say mixing, you cannot expect the variation, right? So similarly, this particular floral part, that is or the floral shoot, I can say, was initially was in the primitive form, and ultimately when a typical flower, so that became a specialized part, that time the various agencies involved themselves in the pollination. Let there be self-pollination or cross-pollination. Most of the plants are cross-pollinated, but few are self-pollinated. And always remember, in self-pollinated plants, always there is a margin for cross-pollination. And in the cross-pollinated plants, cross-pollinated varieties, always there is a margin for self-pollination. Do you understand this particular word, self and cross? I think yesterday a typical foundation type of video which was related to flower was sent to you. That was really basic. So whatever the things we are going to learn here, they are also basic, because unfortunately this particular NCERT doesn't allow we people to get into the depth of this particular subject. But we will try to share maximum knowledge with you, okay, with the help of presentation, with the help of some practical work and on the board. Now let us think about the evolution once again. When a typical part of the shoot that became specialized, it became condensed, I am using the word condensed. When it became condensed, then that particular structure that became a typical site for inserting various sex organs. Let there be a male or female. In some cases, in some flowers, male components are present. In some flowers, female components are present. So they become unisexual flowers. When both the components, male and female, are present, they become bisexual, okay, or hermaphrodite. Usually the word hermaphrodite goes with the animals, but in case of flowers you can also use the word hermaphrodite. But bisexual flower will be the most conventional way to call that particular type, right? Now let us think about the various parts which are involved in the overall reproduction mechanism. I am not talking about exactly male and female part. The accessory parts which are here, like petals and sepals, they are also important, because in the beginning, in the initial stage, when a flower is present in the bud condition, suppose this is bud, then there should be some protection, outer protection. So that outer protection is always provided by calyx. Then whatever the petals are present, which actually jackets the sex organs, male and female, that is Androsium and Gynosium. So that particular jacket is mostly colorful. Sometimes it appears dull in color, but fragrance and other nectarines are present to attract the pollinators. But in most of the cases, the typical petals are brightly colored just to attract the pollinators. So this is how the accessory whorls are also important. So calyx and corolla are the accessory whorls. Essential whorls are both, that is male and female sex organ. Male part, it is called as Androsium, and female part, it is called as Gynosium. So let us begin with the actual flower now. This particular structure is put, or it is inserted on some disc-like structure. So this particular disc is called as thalamus. And remember, thalamus is nothing but the condensed stem. Why it is called as condensed stem? Remember the word which was told in the beginning itself. It's an evolutionary structure. Initially the stem was present like this, and slowly it condensed itself to make a flat disc, just to prepare a base for insertion of various floral whorls. Floral whorls means parts. आपण ज्याला फुलाचे भाग म्हणतो ना, तर ते whorls म्हणजे भाग येतात. WHORLS. Floral whorls. आता आता काही टर्मिनॉलॉजीज या तुम्हाला नवीन वाटत असतील, पण तरीसुद्धा त्या तुम्हाला लक्षात ठेवायच्या आहेत आणि ज्यांना ह्या गोष्टी माहिती असतील त्यांच्याकरता खूप चांगली गोष्ट आहे, रिवाइज करून पुढे जायचं. Once again, this particular thalamus is nothing but a disc-like structure, and it is always provided with nodes and internodes. This particular structure, thalamus, it has nodes and internodes, and this is the proof of my statement that initially thalamus was a stem, because in the stem you can expect nodes, and between two nodes there is a region of internode. Are you getting my point? So this is how the thalamus is always responsible for providing a flat disc-like structure for insertion of various floral whorls. What floral whorls are arranged on the thalamus? Calyx, Corolla, Androsium, Gynosium. Only 4 floral whorls are inserted. But let me tell you, whatever the things are present below thalamus that we need to understand first. This particular thalamus is put on a typical what I can say, 4 or a stalk-like structure. So that stalk-like structure is called as pedicel. So pedicel, it is present at the end of pedicel. There is presence of thalamus, and on the thalamus various floral whorls are arranged. Let there be ovary, let there be petals, let there be sepals or anther filament. Whatever the things are there, they are arranged on the thalamus. So thalamus always provides a disc, a surface for insertion of various floral whorls. Are you getting this point? Now, let us talk about the lower part which is present below the thalamus. Okay. Below thalamus, pedicel is present. In some cases, pedicel is absent. So, when a flower is with pedicel, for example, hibiscus, so it is pedicellate flower. When pedicel is absent, it is called as sessile. This particular word was introduced to you during your leaf section, leaf topic, right? So this particular sessile flower is always without any pedicel. So it is getting directly attached to the stem. So I think तुम्ही बऱ्याच जणांनी निशिगंधाचं फूल बघितलं असेल, a tuberose, a beautiful fragrance. Actually the nectaries of that particular flower that opens in the evening, म्हणून त्याला निशिगंध म्हणतात. निशी evening, gandha fragrance. So the flower which gives evening time fragrance, that is nishigandha, tuberose. Okay, so that is a pedicellate, we cannot call it. It is called as sessile. Okay, pedicellate and sessile flower. One more thing you can observe here in this particular diagram, that is bract. What do you mean by bract? Bract is nothing but the typical leaf-like structure which is present at the base of pedicel. Suppose this is main axis, and if the pedicel is attached like this, I can use a chalk. Yes, suppose this is pedicel and flower blooms over here. So this is pedicel. Okay, this is pedicellate flower, this is main stem, and this particular pedicel will have a small leaf-like structure. So it is called as bract, B-R-A-C-T, bract. So bract, it always shows green in color, and in some cases bracts are colorful. For example, bougainvillea, whatever the colored part you see, that particular colored part is nothing but the colorful bract. There are several modifications, but today we are going to start with the basics only. Several modifications are there, and which can be learnt in due course of time. So this particular bract is leaf-like structure once again, which assists that particular plant in photosynthesis. Okay, and venations are present. Hence you can say whatever the flowers are present, it is nothing but the condensed stem, condensed shoot, modified shoot, and the thalamus. It always shows presence of nodes and internodes. That much part you should always remember. So this is bract. A flower with pedicel is pedicel. Flower without pedicel, it is sessile. Flower with bract, it is bracteate. And flower without bract is ebracteate. Abracteate nahi, ebracteate. So that much part you should remember now. With pedicel, that is pedicellent. Without pedicel, it is sessile. With bract, it is bracteate. And without bract, ebracteate. Okay, I think some of you are writing the words which are spoken by me. Okay, that much you should write at least in your interest notebook or practice notebook. Let us have a quick revision for various floral parts. So this particular sepal, there are so many sepals, but for our convenience we have taken the two-dimensional figure, and sepals are present. So each member of sepal is called as calyx. Calyx and corolla. Corolla, it's a petal, and sepal is calyx. Always remember. थोड़ा जमलिंग होऊ शकतं. तुम्ही सेपलला करोला कराल आणि पेटलला कॅलिक्स कराल असं होऊ शकतं, पण ते जास्त दिवस होऊ देऊ नका, कारण ते आपल्या फायद्याचं नाही. सो सेपल ॲक्च्युली कॅलिक्स अँड करोला मीन्स पेटल. लक्षात येते? सो ऑलवेज रिमेंबर, सेपल्स दे appear green in color. Sepals appear green in color and it protects the bud of the flower. In initial phases, if you observe the hibiscus bud carefully, then you can find a typical green portion which is present at the base of the bud. That particular green portion, it always provides a nourishment to the developing bud, because that developing bud always requires more food to bloom. Are you getting this point? Now, if you observe that particular sepal or calyx carefully, you will find some venations over there. So this is the evidence of my statement, that is flower is modified shoot. I can ask you to write several justifications for my statements. Okay, so definitely you should remember this point. This sepal part, it appears green in color. It is involved in photosynthesis. It always shows presence of some venations. Venation were present in case of leaves, and now here you can find a venation with the calyx, that is sepal. So this is how the modified shoot is present in front of you. This part, which is shown by dashed lines, so it's a petal. It's a representative structure, so you need not to bother about it. Petals are always colorful. In some cases, petals are dull color, but several other mechanisms are present just to attract the pollinators. In some cases, petals are reduced, they are short. In some cases, petals are highly or brightly colored and highly attractive. It is possible. So this is how there are so many variations, n number of combinations are present in the nature, and we people, as a student of biology, including myself, we people, you and me, always we should try to understand the knowledge which is there in the nature. We should not learn the knowledge which is present there in your books. We should understand, we should inculcate the principles of nature by learning and by observing various things. This particular rule is applicable to morphology. This particular rule is applicable to anatomy. This particular rule is applicable to human biology, everywhere. even in case of physics, even in case of chemistry, you can apply this rule. That means you should remember, you are a student of biology, you are a student of science, and unless and until you understand the principles of that particular science, you are not going to apply them. Am I right? Because there are so many students, those who have cleared their entrances this year, still they are wondering that even after mugging up so much of knowledge, so much of books, they could not score more. The reason behind this is they didn't understand the principle of science, principle of subject, principle of that particular topic. When I say there is a presence of 4 nodes and 3 internodes in the thalamus, that means thalamus is condensed shoot. Shoot always it will show presence of nodes, and between 2 nodes there will be presence of internode. If you are understanding this principle, then it will be very helpful to you to understand the exact structure of thalamus, exact structure of flower. Now, I am going to tell you the great thing beyond this particular structure, that is petals. Go to the garden, any garden, then pluck some flowers of hibiscus. Take out one petal, red color or orange color or white, anything. So take out that petal and hold it in front of the sun. So against the light you should hold it and just see through it. You will find various venations are passing through it. Reticular type of venation or parallel type of venation can be seen easily. This is the evidence for my statement, that is flower is modified shoot. So always remember, whenever I say that flower is modified shoot, you should talk about the thalamus, you should talk about the sepal, you should talk about the petal. Are you getting this point? Good. Now, these 2 words were accessory words. They were not directly involved in the reproduction process. Hence, they are accessory. But yes, they are required. When in ideal cases, in normal cases, all the 4 words are present. Calyx, Corolla, Androsium, Gynoecium. When any one of the word is absent or if it is modified, that time some additional mechanism is operative in the nature to continue the life of that particular plant species. Nature never says that, okay, you don't have the 3rd floral world, so now you cannot survive in the nature, so you should die. So nature will not say like that. There will be a continuous modification, that is evolution. There will be a continuous floral evolution. There will be a continuous hormonal evolution, because there are several hormones which are associated with the bud formation. So I think we have talked about axillary bud. In the axial position, that is the notch which is present. In the axial position, if bud is present, it is called as axillary bud. If it grows, it will grow into a shoot. Similarly, when a typical bud, if it is growing for formation of flower, that time you should say, okay, this is the modified shoot once again, and yes, this can be another evidence for the statement that is flower is modified shoot. Okay, are you getting this point? Great. Let us talk about the essential words. What do you mean by essential? Essential words means without which flower cannot be produced, flower cannot continue for several generations. Okay, so similarly we have good examples with human life. So unless and until reproduction process is involved in human society, you cannot expect progeny to grow. Okay, Same case appears there in case of flowers. Both the male and female are the organs which should be there in the nature. There can be unisexual flowers, there can be bisexual flowers. If unisexual flowers are present, then definitely there should be some pollination mechanism. There should be some agencies for pollination. Let there be a wind, let there be a water, let there be a insect, let there be some bats or some snakes or squirrel or snails. There are so many examples. There are so many examples, but these examples you are going to learn there in your standard 12. Okay. This particular structure, that is Androsium and Gynoecium, that we are going to learn. What do you mean by Androsium? Androsium, it's a male part. So anther and filament together they comprise the Androsium. Anther is nothing but the lobe-like structure, and below which you can expect a typical filament is growing. So filament is always attached to the thalamus. So this is how the thalamus provides a surface for attachment of various floral organs. This filament, when it is showing some support to the anther lobe which is present at the tip, that time you can expect. So this particular structure is also a modified shoot. So whenever we talk about various floral buds, that time you should remember we are talking about modified shoot. Now this particular anther lobe is usually bilobe structure. There are two lobes, and in the two lobes, once again the two halves are present, means 4 locules they form. Total 4 chambers are present. Anther, if it is bilobed, then 2 lobes, and each lobe it has 1 septum and 2 locules are present. So 2 into 2, 4. 4 locules and 2 chambers, or what we can say 2 halves, we can call it as, okay, or 2 lobes easily. So this is the typical male structure. What do you mean by female? That is Gynoecium. Gynoecium is made up of, or pistil, it is made up of stigma, style and ovary. Stigma, it's a broad surface. There are so many types of stigma, but this particular bifid stigma, it's a common and very popular and very easy structure to remember. Okay, so bifid stigma is present. So maximum surface area is now available for attachment of pollen grains. So this bifid stigma continues with the stylar canal. So it's a stylar canal through which the pollen tube passes, and below style there is a presence of ovary. Ovary covers or it jackets the ovules. So initially at the surface, at the top, a typical stigma which shows the maximum surface area. This particular surface area, it always produces sticky substance which is sucrose by nature. It's a sugar actually, it's a sucrose by nature. This sticky substance, if it is present and on this surface, if pollen grains they fall, they will form a pollen tube, and that pollen tube will travel through this particular stylar canal, and that pollen tube will reach to the ovule, and the fertilization process will occur. So this is how the Gynoecium is also one of the essential floral organs. Okay, now I think you can revise the names. This is stigma, style, ovary, this is anther, and this is filament. This is a typical petal, member of corolla, and this is sepal, member of calyx. Now think about this particular flat globular structure. So that is thalamus, which provides a typical surface area for insertion of various floral buds. This is pedicel and this is the bract. I think this basic introduction was quite okay. Think about this point once again. Flower is a highly modified condensed shoot. It's an organ for sexual reproduction. Thalamus, it's a base for insertion of various floral buds. And always remember, there are 3 nodes and 4 nodes and 3 internodes present in the thalamus. So in final exams, many times this particular question is asked: how many nodes and how many internodes are present in the thalamus? So you should cleverly answer the question. Okay. I think this particular initial part was quite okay, but now we are going to start with the actual Calyx Corolla, Androsium, Gynosium, and a typical symmetry of the flower. This particular flower part we are going to learn in the beginning itself. After this part, we are going to start with the inflorescence and flower type and inflorescence we are going to learn. And then we are going to start with the other seed and fruit and other things. Okay, so this is how this particular chapter is there. Once we are done with this particular plant parts, we are going to start with the families. Yes, we are going to learn the family. It's a fantastic study. Actually, whatever the things are there, Calyx, Corolla, Androsium, Gynosium, everything should be learned through the family studies. When I say I'm studying a typical family, Asteraceae, so that time you should recall, okay, I know certain examples from family Asteraceae, aster flower, then sunflower, then a typical Tridax. So that much part I know. Now I am going to learn all the details from this particular family. So every time, whenever we talk about any family, it's a best opportunity. It's a best opportunity to learn the entire botany, morphological study, which is present around that particular plant. So definitely this particular study, that is morphology, it requires good command over the subject, good command over the terminologies. Unless and until you remember the word, you cannot express your thoughts in a very compact manner. So when I say a condensed stem with 4 nodes and 3 internodes is the place for insertion of various floral buds. So that sentence I need not to talk every time. I should say thalamus. Yes, there are several types of thalamus and we are going to talk about thalamus. So this much part will be sufficient. तुम्हाला दरवेळेस एवढं लांब लचक सगळं सांगण्याची गरज पडत नाही. त्याच्याकरता टर्मिनॉलॉजीज आहे आणि त्या पार्टला ते नाव दिलेलं आहे. लक्षात ठेवलं पाहिजे. डिटॉक्सिफिकेशन ऑफ ह्यूमन बॉडी टेक्स प्लेस इन अ सर्टन ऑर्गन. मग याची गरज नाही आहे. लिव्हर यू कॅन डिरेक्टली से. सेम तसंच आहे की याच्यामध्ये तुम्हाला सांगता यायला पाहिजे की काय पद्धतीने डेव्हलपमेंट होते, काय पद्धतीने एखादा ऑर्गन आहे, काय पद्धतीने तो फंक्शन करतो आणि तो जर का ऑर्गन तिथे नसेल तर त्यामुळे काय होऊ शकतं. सो दॅट इज ऑल अबाउट मॉर्फॉलॉजी. इट इज रिअली सिम्पल, इट इज रिअली इंटरेस्टिंग अँड इट इज रिअली व्हॉट आय कॅन से इन्फॉर्मेटिव्ह. तुमच्या वर्गातून, तुमच्या बॅचमधून अनेक जणांनी रूट, स्टेम आणि काही जणांचं लीफचं काम चालू आहे अजून. तर लीफचं ते प्रोजेक्ट्स करतात. हे सगळे प्रोजेक्ट्स तुम्ही लिहून ठेवा. ज्यांनी ज्यांनी फोटोग्राफ्स पाठवले त्यांनी अतिशय उत्तम काम केलं आहे. बऱ्याच जणांना रिप्लाय दिला गेलेला आहे. काही जणांचं राहिलं असेल तर थोडं सध्या शूटिंग आणि अनेक गोष्टी एका वेळेस चालू आहेत त्यामुळे हे थोडं राहू शकतं. पण तुम्ही हे करताय हे खूप चांगली गोष्ट आहे. कुठलंही सायन्स हे तुमच्या एक्सपेरिमेंटशिवाय होऊ शकत नाही. तो दिसायला एक्सपेरिमेंट एवढासा दिसतो. अनेक जणांनी एक्सपिरियन्स केलेला असेल की ते जे जुगाड करायला सांगितलं होतं, हाऊ टू पुट अन अनियन ऑन द बॉटल इफ बॉटल इज माउथ इज ब्रॉडर than the onion, then how you are going to arrange it? So few wires were put, few nails were put, some additional support was given to it. There were so many combinations, there were so many tricks which were used by you people. हे सायन्स. याच्यामध्ये सोपं तुम्हाला करता येईल. ज्या दिवशी तुम्ही जो अनियन असेल त्याचं स्क्रॅपिंग करता. हां, एका स्टुडंटने लिहिलं होतं, आय डिड एव्हरीथिंग विदाउट स्क्रॅपिंग ऑफ दिस स्टेम. तसंही करून बघायला हरकत नाही. कंट्रोल म्हणून एक असतं, एक नॅचरल ह्याच्यात ठेवून टाकायचं आणि स्क्रॅपिंग करून ठेवायचं. स्क्रॅपिंग गिव्ज यू ऑलमोस्ट इक्वल लेंथ ऑफ रूट्स. Non-scraping stem that always gives more or less length of the roots. Okay, so this much part you should remember. आता हा जो सगळा प्रकार आहे एक्सपेरिमेंटचा, तुम्ही म्हणाल की हा वर्गात झाला असता तर किती छान झालं असतं. तो आमचंही तेच म्हणणं आहे, वर्गात झाला असतं तर उत्तमच झालं असतं, पण आता ते होऊ शकत नाही आहे. म्हणून आपण सायन्स थांबवायचं का नाही. तुम्ही इंटरेस्ट म्हणून शिकताय. तुम्हाला डॉक्टर व्हायचं आहे, मग क्लासची काय करायचं, टेस्ट सिरीज लावा, होऊन जाईल, तुमचा पाठ करा, होऊन जाईल, डॉक्टरही व्हाल, कळणार काही नाही. हे तुम्ही उत्तम करा. प्रॅक्टिकल हँड इतका चांगला ठेवा की उद्या तुम्ही कुठेही गेला, तुम्ही मेडिकललाच जा असं नाही, बायोटेक्नॉलॉजीला जा, मॅनेजमेंटला जा, लॉ करा, काही करा. हा जो अभ्यास करण्याची जी काही पद्धत असेल दॅट विल ऑलवेज हेल्प यू. तुम्ही जोपर्यंत हे समजून घेत नाही सायन्स, तोपर्यंत हे सगळं अवघड वाटेल. पण आता काही जण एक्सपेरिमेंट्स करतायत, त्यांना ते सोपं वाटायला लागले, इंटरेस्ट पण येतो. फक्त याच्या सगळ्याचे रेकॉर्ड्स ठेवा. से तुम्ही 1 डिसेंबरला समजा अनियन घेतला, स्क्रॅपिंग केलं, यू पुट इट इन टू द वॉटर बाय टचिंग द डिस्क टू द वॉटर सरफेस, हे एवढं केलं, ओके. सेकंड डे त्याच वेळेला समजा दुपारी 12 वाजता ठेवलं, दुसऱ्या दिवशी 2 तारखेला 12 वाजता काय केलं ते बघा, 3 तारखेला 12 वाजता रूट्स आले होते का ते बघा, 4 तारखेला बघा, 5 तारखेला बघा, रूट्सची लेंथ मोजा. सिम्पल स्केल असते तुमच्या कंपोस्ट बॉक्समध्ये असते, ते रुलर घ्या आणि ते त्याच्यावरनं त्याची लेंथ मोजा आणि ती लिहून ठेवा. अँड सिम्पली यू कॅन पुट अ ग्राफ, राईट, डेट December 1, December 2, December 3, December 4, December 5, and on the y-axis you can simply put the length of the stem. Simply put it 1 centimeter, 1.5 centimeter, 2.1 centimeter, 3.1 centimeter. So you can put it like this, and ultimately you can plot a graph. So this particular activity is nothing but the science. This is nothing but the practical, and when you are quite expert in performing practicals on your own, then you can say yes, you are a true student of science. काय असतं स्कूलमध्ये, थोडंसं टीचर सांगतात, कोणीतरी शेजारचं लिहितो ते बघून लिहायचं, मग घरी कोणीतरी आपल्याला डिक्टेट करतं ते लिहायचं, ते कम्प्लिशनला मजा नसते. दॅट इज नॉट अ सायन्स, दॅट इज अ क्लिनिकल वर्क दॅट यू शुड नॉट परफॉर्म. You should be involved in various creative activity. Okay, so I think this much part was quite sufficient for introducing the science of flower. Okay, now we are going to start with the actual presentation, and once again presentation will be of quite a longer time, and once we are done with the presentation, then we'll shift to the blackboards, and then you can easily correlate the picture and the terminologies which are associated with. Okay, now I am switching the camera to the central board for displaying the various pictures. So now we are going to begin with the actual pictures on the screen about the flower study and the floral works. Initially we are going to have certain pictures about what is flower, how it appears, just to have a quick review about the diversity present among the various floral forms. Simply keep on looking the patterns This is Cisalpinia pulcherrima. The very first slide was about the same. Shankasur, it's a common garden plant. Once again, Shankasur, Cisalpinia pulcherrima. This is a typical, you can easily identify. येते का लक्षात? गुलमोहर, लांब शेंगा असतात गुलमोहराच्या. So this is Delonix regia or gulmohar. Simply you can see. You need not to always remember the scientific words. Look at the colorful pattern. It's a white color, and purely it is white without any mixing of any other color speech. Look at this, very common in the nature. This is also nothing but the inflorescence. We are going to learn this, but these are the small flowers which are arranged closely. Flowers appears to be very small in size, but definitely they are inserted on the rachis, that is axis. The same one. राजगिरा आपण म्हणतो ना, राजगिऱ्याची झाडं ती ही amaranthus. Common plant, that is tulsi plant. So this is inflorescence. This is flowering axis. Means this is modified stem. A typical monocot, grass family, monocot family. So there are so many flowers which are closely arranged and they form a typical tail-like structure. Beautiful flowers, beautiful coloration, ornamentation, yellow colored flower, a typical flower set, flower bunch of the plant. You can easily identify the plant. If you are quite good observer, then definitely you can say the plant name. So this is mango plant. ज्यांना ओळखता आला असेल खूप चांगली गोष्ट आहे. ज्यांना नाही आलं त्याने अभ्यास सुरू करा. फक्त पुस्तकात राहू नका, बाहेर जा, नेचर मध्ये बघा, ऍप्लिकेबिलिटी वाढवा. Look at this, another garden plant. It's a showy plant, but still beautiful flowers, pink color flowers are present. Yeah. Look at the structures. These are the buds and these are the flowers, bloomed flowers. These are the buds. Once again, monocot, a typical काटेकोरंटी आपण ज्याला म्हणतो ना मराठीमध्ये. So that particular plant is this. So this is घाणेरी, मराठीमध्ये घाणेरी म्हणतात त्याला. हे लॅन्टाना, इंग्लिशमध्ये लॅन्टाना कॅमेरा हे त्याचं नाव आहे. And this particular bunch of flower, umbel type of inflorescence it is. आता inflorescence part तुम्हाला म्हणलं तर आहे, म्हणलं तर नाही आहे. खूप जास्त तुम्हाला डिटेल्स नाही आहेत, पण still we are going to consider all the details for inflorescence. So this is umbel type of inflorescence, and usually it is showing a cluster of various flowers. आणि हा cluster actually, it is not a single flower, it's a cluster. ही सगळी प्लांट्स तुमच्या आजूबाजूला आहेत. तुम्ही एक काम करू शकता, हे जसे फोटोग्राफ्स आहेत ना तसे नेटवरून न काढता, नेटवरून कुठल्याही फ्लावरचा फोटो न घेता, तुमच्याकडे मोबाईल आहे, मोबाईलमध्ये चांगला कॅमेरा आहे, तुम्ही बाहेर जा, बाहेर त्याचा एखादा फोटो काढा आणि तुम्ही शेअर करू शकता. तुम्ही जेवढे प्लांट्स बघाल, जेवढे फ्लावर्स बघाल, नुसत्या प्लांट्सचे नाही, जेवढे फ्लावर्स बघाल ना तर त्याचा तुम्ही फोटो काढा आणि त्याच्याबरोबर एक काहीतरी सिग्नेचर एखादी गोष्ट ठेवा आणि स्केल असू बरोबर. स्केल म्हणजे कसं, सपोज आय एम टेकिंग अ फोटोग्राफ ऑफ दिस पर्टिक्युलर फ्लावर, देन देर शुड बी सम पेन, देर शुड बी सम कॉइन, or there should be some object with that particular flower, then we can easily consider the actual dimension of the flowers. Okay, so simply you can use a pen, keep it everywhere same, and every time you should use it, simply hold it beside the flower and take a click, and easily you will come to know about the actual dimension of the flower. You can easily compare it. Okay, so you can perform this activity as a practical. Yeah, beautiful flower cluster of the tea plant. सागाचं झाड, ज्याचा तुम्हाला रंग काढून दाखवला होता ना, फाउंडेशनचा व्हिडिओ होता बघा एकदा, हातावरती ते रब करून त्याचा रंग केला होता लाल रंगाचा. सो दिस इज द प्लांट, दॅट इज टी प्लांट, सागवानाचा प्लांट. फ्लावर बघा फक्त. अमोर्फोफॅलस, सुरण, त्याचं हे फूल आहे आणि इतकं ते त्याचा पंजंट स्मेल असतो, व्हेरी 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 बॅड ओडर. सो दॅट बॅड ओडर इज ॲक्च्युअली बॅड फॉर वी पीपल, बट देर आर सर्टन insects and beetles, they always prefer that odor, and then they enter into this particular flower and the pollination occurs. So this particular flower is usually cultivated in the botanical gardens. So if you are planning to visit London, then definitely you should go for Royal Botanical Garden at Kew, Kew. Okay, there are certain botanical gardens, Lucknow Botanical Garden. Actually, this particular part you have studied in your chapter 2, and now it will be applicable over here. So this particular application part you need to understand and try to visit the maximum places and try to understand, try to gather the information from them. Yes. Now let us begin with the actual study of flower. So this is hibiscus, and these are the petals. Easily you can see the yellow colors are nothing but the anthers, anther lobes actually they are, and they are open. Now the pollen grains are ready to get dispersed, and these are the stigma. Stigma, it's a flat surface. Usually we can see a bifid stigma, but you need not to always consider bifid stigma as a standard stigma style. There can be some globe-like structure, flat disc-like structures, and easily it can be studied with the help of various instruments, microscopic help. So you can easily observe various structures. So this is stigma, 5 stigma. तो एक त्याच्या ज्या काही टर्मिनॉलॉजीज आहेत, दॅट पर्टिक्युलर टर्मिनॉलॉजीज वी आर गोइंग टू लर्न इन द ॲक्च्युअल फॅमिली स्टडीज, बट स्टील यू कॅन pentacarpellary ovary, this word you can easily understand. 5 carpels means 5 stigma. 5 stigma means 5 reception points for pollen grains. Let us go through the various plant parts. This is stigma, style, and the ovary and the ovule. Stigma, style, ovary. Ovary encloses ovule. Ovule, after fertilization, it forms seed, and the ovary, which is present around, it forms a fruit. Hence, the fruit always encloses seed. In normal cases, I am talking about. Think about a typical stamen, that is male part, anther and the filament. This particular stigma is responsible for receiving the pollen grains which are shedded by various agencies. Then the pollen tube forms and it enters through the style or the stylar canal, and it reaches up to the ovule, and the male gametes are present in the pollen tube, and the egg cell which is present in the ovule, it gets fertilized. Think about this receptacle. What do you mean by receptacle? Receptacle is the same one, that is thalamus, which is with 4 nodes and 3 internodes. Then this particular sepal, this is petal. The entire set, stigma, style, ovary, ovule, is called as pistil, pollen pistil interaction. This word you are going to learn in standard 12, because there is certain mechanism for accepting the pollen grains of desired flower. Not all pollen grains will form a pollen tube on any flower stigma. So it is not possible. So there is a perfect relation. जसे humans मध्ये असते, you cannot expect human sperms to fertilize the rat's egg. You cannot expect that. Similarly, in case of flowers, it is not happening that any pollen grain of any flower will fertilize the egg of any flower. So mismatch never occurs. So this is a typical pistil set. This is stem, and forget about the stem section. Actually, the phloem and xylem you can easily observe. The vascular bundles, and here you can say this particular flower is nothing but the modified shoot, because shoot always contains xylem and phloem, that is vascular bundle, conductive tissues. Once again a diagram, typical diagram. Androsium, Gynoecium, Corolla, Calyx, Pedicel. These are the calyx, members are sepals. This is Corolla, members are petals. This is Androsium, and this is Gynoecium. The bract is present. This particular bract is quite bigger by size, so purposely I am showing this particular bract. This is green by color, and easily you can observe venations are present. So this is bract, and the flower with the bract is called as bracteate, and if flower without bract is ebracteate. Bracteate, caesalpinia. So initially the bracts were present. So think about this particular sessile type of flower. What do you mean by sessile? So it's a flower without presence of any pedicel. Okay, hence it is sessile. This is pedicellate flower. Purposely I am showing this particular flower in the bud condition, because I think I am going to repeat that statement at the time of estivation, that any flower study can be done well during its bud condition, because all the stages, all the facts which are related to the basics of that particular flower can be studied well during the bud condition, and they can be seen prominently in that particular condition. So this is a typical bud. So this is petal, which is guarding a typical male and female structure. This is calyx. So this is calyx, which is covering the bud condition, and in the initial phase you can observe here it is surrounded. This particular petal part is surrounded by the green color, that is sepals. You can find this. This is calyx. Once again, one more picture about calyx. This is green color, and I'm not sure whether you are able to see this particular venation pattern over here. If not, this particular PDF is available with you and you can easily observe it. So these are the venations, and this typical hibiscus flower, it always shows presence of such extra structure which is present below the typical calyx. So it is called as epicalyx. भेंडी खाल्ली का? भेंडी सगळ्यांनी? ते भेंडीमध्ये काही प्रोजेक्शन्स असतात at the attachment point. So that is epicalyx, because that bhindi plant and this hibiscus belongs to the same family, that is Malvaceae. It's a typical characteristic feature of Malvaceae family. Now I am going to use the word Malvaceae and the epicalyx. That much part you should remember. Okay. So keep yourself ready with pen, pencil and writing material. Look at this beautiful structure, a prominent structure of calyx. We can observe here. Now there are two terminologies, polycephalus and gamocephalus. What do you mean by poly? Poly means free. The sepals, that is member of calyx, are sepals. If they are free from each other, then it is polycephalus condition. If they are fused together, that is gamo, they are gamocephalus. So here, in this particular gulmohar, the flower you can easily observe. So it is showing polycephalus condition. So this is poly, free from each other. If these two are fused, then it becomes gamocephalus. I can show you the gamocephalus condition. So this is gamocephalus. This one is one calyx. The second is one calyx. If they are fused together at base or anywhere in the running length, so that part you can consider as fused structure, gamocephalus. Okay? Yes. So this is polycephalus and this is gamocephalus. I think I have a few more pictures about this. Yeah, gamocephalus. A typical flower, the Datura flower. It is showing green color. So they are fused together. So here in case of hibiscus, you can easily find it is gamocephalus. Here in case of rose, it is polycephalus. Each sepal is separate from each other. It is not fused. It is fused with the thalamus only. It is not fused with the adjoining sepal. Here you can look at this particular structure. It is prominent structure quite well, and this tube-like structure is formed by the fusion of the calyx or the various sepals. So this particular structure is present with the rose. So it is polycephaly condition, polycephalus condition. Now I can say about persistent calyx. There are so many types like pappus calyx and other things, but this persistent calyx I am going to say because even after formation of fruit, the calyx remains attached to the original stem. Now this is the attachment point for brinjal. There is some attachment for this is attachment point for tomatoes. So both of them are belonging to the family Solanaceae. Now this becomes a typical peculiar character for family Solanaceae. What do you mean by persistent calyx? It remains there. So it remains there even after there is formation of fruit. What other parts you expect here? Calyx, corolla, Androsium, Dionysium. Calyx is present over here. What about corolla? After formation of seed or immediately after formation of embryo, the petals, they wither. They get removed themselves from the attachment points on the thalamus and they form. They always allow that particular plant to grow in its own fashion. So petals get removed. Male and female structures, they also get what I can say, they also wither off, they get removed, they fall down, and the ovary that swells. Ovary swells and the typical seed, it grows, embryo grows. So everything you are well aware about. This particular fruit or this fruit, they always show presence of the calyx. In the bud condition, calyx were present. Now, even after fruit is formed, calyx is present. Hence, it is called as persistent. Persistent it is present. Hence, it is called as persistent calyx. Okay. Another modification I would like to show you about a typical or variation I can say. So, this particular calyx is green bicolor. It helps in photosynthesis, but sometimes there is a necessity by plant to make that green calyx colorful. Why it should be colorful? To attract more pollinators, and to carry out the maximum fertilization. So more number of visits of any honeybee species will definitely increase the probability of fertilization. Okay, think about this. Petal like sepal. Initially, consider this was green. Initially it was green. Now it is requirement of that particular plant that there should be maximum number of visits of this particular pollinator. Let there be any bee or let there be any bird. So this particular bright color is nothing but the result of evolution. In due course of time, plant must have realized that there should be some additional attracting point, because I do not have that much brightly colored petals, I do not have any fragrance to produce, but I have a typical calyx which is outermost part. So I should change myself in such a way that definitely there will be some colorful display of my calyx. Hence this particular calyx become colorful. When it appears like petal, when sepal appears like petal, it is petaloid sepal, petal like sepal. Loid means like, petal like sepal, petaloid sepal. Are you getting this point? थोडी टर्मिनॉलॉजी नवीन आहे, हे तुम्हाला लिहावं लागेल, पण सोपं आहे, लक्षात ठेवायला सोपं आहे. कॅलिक्स साठी कसं असतं? ग्रीन. ग्रीन कलर कशासाठी? फोटोसिंथेसिस. बर्ड फॉर्मेशन मध्ये एक्स्ट्रा न्यूट्रिशन. ओके, नाउ पर्पज इज सॉल्व्ड. नाउ इट्स अ टाइम फॉर fertilization or maturity. So that time this particular green structure, it converts itself into a red or colorful structure to attract maximum pollinators. So this is how the nature's modification is great, and it is called as petaloid sepal. I think we can go for the next one. Corolla. What do you mean by corolla? It's a petal, set of petals. Look at this particular PowerPoint presentation. You should watch this PowerPoint presentation first, and then you should go for the remaining lecture. Okay, so in the beginning itself I mentioned about presence of veins and veinlets in the petal itself. Just plug the one petal and observe the petal against sun. So definitely there should be a light behind that petal, and you can easily observe various vein-like structures and veinlets are present in the petal. This is nothing but the evidence for the statement that is flower, it's a modified shoot. Once again calyx, then corolla and apicalyx. So everything is there. Let us go ahead. Now I can say about Petalus and Cephalus condition. So I need not to say much more about the petals. Petal is a brightly colored structure, and this particular condition where you can find petals are fused together to form a tube-like structure. So it is Petalus condition. So this tube-like structure is present in case of certain families only. Not everywhere you will find the corolla tube. सगळ्याच ठिकाणी करोलाच्या ट्यूब्स तयार होतील असं नाही. इथे आता आहेत म्हणून ठीक आहे. इतर वेळेस असताना काय करणार आहे? गॅमोपेटालस कंडिशन असू शकते ना. ही एक टिपिकल कंडिशन झाली. सो दिस पर्टिक्युलर प्लांट इज बिलॉंगिंग टू द फॅमिली सोलानेसी. सो वेर यू कॅन फाइंड there is presence of Cephalus and Petalus condition. Polypetalus condition. Petals are free from each other. That is polypetalus condition. आता हे पेटल आणि सेपल हा जो पार्ट आहे तो आपला झाला. Calyx Corolla. Okay, now I would like to introduce a term, that is perianth. What do you mean by perianth? Perianth, it's a typical structure where you cannot easily find out which is petal and which is sepal. Both the things are fused. They do not show their individual presence. So it is a typical perianth. So this is perianth. So this particular flower is nothing but the tuberose. मगाशी जे म्हणतो ना निशिगंध, ते सगळ्यांनी बघितलेलं असतं. आपण बुकेमध्ये वगैरे यूज करतो किंवा गार्लँड्स असतात त्यामध्ये यूज होतो, फुलांच्या माळा. So this particular structure is nothing but the perianth. At the base you can easily find green structures are present, green shade is present. So it is a typical presence of calyx, and whatever the white part is present above, so it is a typical corolla. So calyx and corolla, if they are fused together, they form a typical perianth. And individual member of perianth is called as tepals. T-E-P-A-L-S, tepals. बोर्ड वरती तो वर्ड लिहिलेला आहे, तो तुम्हाला वाचायला मिळेल. सो सेपल, पेटल आणि टेपल. आता या सगळ्या गोष्टी तुम्हाला कन्फ्युजनमध्ये टाकणाऱ्या आहेत, पण डेफिनेटली यू नीड नॉट टू गेट कन्फ्यूज, अँड सिम्पली इफ यू थिंक अबाउट whatever the structures are present in front of you, you should remember them with the help of examples. Then it will be little easy for you to understand the things in the initial phase. I think we can go ahead. This was all about accessory type of floral beads. Let us go ahead with the essential type of floral beads. Anthers. A very beautiful picture. Let me see. Very clear, very fantastic picture. And let me tell you, all the images are sourced from Google. So there are certain pictures which were taken during field work or the nature walk or even at the learning center. But maximum pictures are sourced from the internet, because we are not so good at photography and we do not have that much collection to show you. So this particular structure is anther. I am talking about this particular yellow part. I am not talking about this. So this flower is nothing but, yes, hibiscus. So it's a stigma, and this is anther. So look at this particular anther loop, and now they are matured and pollen grains are ready to get dispersed. This is also another type, and probably this belongs to the family Liliaceae. Lilies of flower असतं ना, कांदा, lily, all of them, they belong into the family Liliaceae. Once again, these are the stamens, anther and filament, and these are the styles, stigma, style and ovary. These are the style canals. Look at this particular picture. If you take a section of anther, then you will find a structure like this. It's a TS. Actually, this is TS. So projection you can easily consider. So there are two lobes, lobe 1, lobe 2. Each lobe have 2 chambers. So total 4 chambers are present, and these 4 chambers, they contain microspore mother cell. Microspore mother cell, they undergo meiosis, and meiosis, it produces microspores, and they are nothing but the pollen grains. Various pollen grains, and these are the images which are taken with the help of microscopes. So pollen grain of hibiscus, datura, धोत्र्याचा प्लांट जे असतं, pollen grain of sunflower, and once again pollen grain of sunflower, but with more magnification. So such spiny structure you can easily observe. Different types of pollen grains, So this particular part which I wanted to show you is now, I think my intention is over. So I was talking about the anther, that is male reproductive part, okay, with anther and filament. Filament, it's a simple stalk-like structure which fixes the anther lobe with the actual attachment. Okay. Now we are going to understand various anther conditions. So these anther conditions are not given there in your books, but still we are going to learn them. Some of them are listed here, and for them the photographs have been attached with. This is epipetalous condition. Petalus, something is related to the petal. What do you mean by epi? Means the filaments, the lobes are present above and filaments are showing attachment to the petals. So this is epipetalous condition. Simply understand this. Same thing happens with the datura plant. Once you open the पांढऱ्या रंगाची फुलं भरपूर दिसतात. Once you open it with the help of needle vertically, so if you open it, then you will find various filaments are showing attachment to the corolla. Okay, जे petals जे असतात ना त्याला त्याची attachment असते. So it's a epipetalous condition. This is epiphyllous condition. पूर्णपणे anthers बाहेर आलेले आहेत. आणि this particular flower is typical lily flower, versatile type of anthers. This particular condition is called as monoadelphous condition. What do you mean by monoadelphous? There are several anther lobes and several filaments, but when these filaments come together, they form a single staminal tube. Okay, I am not talking about stylar canal, I am talking about staminal tube. So they form a typical staminal tube. Diadelphous. So this is single cluster. Diadelphous. Di means two clusters. This is single stamen and this is another stamen bundle. So this entire set of stamen is divided into two. First one, single stamen. Second one, cluster of many stamens. Okay. Polyadelphous stamen. Poly means many. Adelphi condition. So there are so many stamens you can easily observe, and this particular plant is nothing but a typical lime plant, limbacha झाड, a family Rutaceae. It's a typical feature of family Rutaceae, polyadelphous condition. So many clusters can be seen. This is monoadelphous, this is diadelphous, this is polyadelphous. Typical structure you can see. Many anthers are present, but a typical adelphi condition when this particular staminal tubes are formed. So there are so many staminal tubes, hence polyadelphy. This is monoadelphy, diadelphy and polyadelphy. This and this particular condition you need to understand. Syngenaceous and synandrous. Syngenaceous means anther lobes are fused but filaments are free from each other. Here in case of synandrous, syn means fused. Anther lobes are fused and even the filaments are fused. Overall the structure from top to bottom, it is fused. Look at this, syngenaceous condition. So it can be seen with the Tradax or any member of the Asterisk. So these are the anthers and these are the filaments. Syngenaceous condition. This is synandrous condition. What do you mean by synandrous? The same condition you can observe here. There is this present is this can be seen with the typical Cucurbitaceae member. म्हणजे आपण काकडी आणि दोडका, कारली, नंतर काय म्हणतो गिलके, या सगळ्यामध्ये तुम्हाला असं दिसेल. ओके, सो दिस इज अ टिपिकल कुकुरबिटेसी फॅमिली. Once again, before starting for female reproductive part, once again have a look at this stigma style ovary, and we have done with this male reproductive organ. In case of typical stigma style ovary, there is nothing to explain actually. At the time of fertilization, I can tell you the things in more detail about ovule. There are two conditions basically, Echocarpus and Syncarpus. Actually, Echocarpus condition, Echo means fused. So there are so many Echocarpus conditions can be seen here, and better picture can be shown later one. About symmetry, yes. When we talk about a typical symmetry, that is actinomorphic and zygomorphic, that time you should understand we are talking about the dividing the flower into two equal halves. Before this picture, I would like to show you the next picture, that is symmetry of flower. Wrongly it is written here symmetric flower. No, symmetry in the flowers. What do you mean by symmetry? When I want to, I can show you the structure like this. Suppose this is an object. If I cut this particular object in this fashion, then I'll get two equal halves. Suppose if I wish to, this is uneven structure, my specs, and if I wish to cut them, so I will not get any equal halves. So same case happens with the symmetric and asymmetric type of flowers. Symmetric type of flowers are the flowers where you can cut them in the desired plane and you can get two equal halves. Asymmetric flowers are the flowers which you cannot cut, which you cannot divide into two equal halves. So odd petal formation or petal arrangement can be seen with the asymmetric type of flowers. Symmetric type of flowers are divided into two major categories, that is actinomorphic and zygomorphic. Actinomorphic is the typical plant or a flower which can be divided into two equal halves along any plane. So this dotted yellow line you can easily observe. This dotted yellow line, if you put it like this, even then you will get two equal halves. If you put it like this, you will get two equal halves. If you put it like this, you will get two equal halves. Here, this typical flower is hibiscus, and this typical flower is clitoria. Okay, so this particular flower is getting divided into two equal halves, but with the specific plane. If you put this particular axis in this fashion only, then and then you will get two equal halves. If you put it like this, or if you put it like this, you are not going to get two equal halves. Or even if you put it like this, you are not going to get equal halves. Okay, so this is the basic feature. I would like to go for this particular diagram once again. Symmetry, actinomorphic, it's a radial symmetry. You put axis in any fashion. If it is passing through the center, then if flower is getting divided into two equal halves, then it is called as actinomorphic type of flower. Flower can be divided into two equal halves along any plane, but condition is that axis should pass through the center. Zygomorphic, it's a bilateral symmetry. Yes, it is symmetry. This is radial symmetry and this is bilateral symmetry. It is the condition where flower can be divided into two equal halves only by a medial cut which is passing through the center, through the central axis. Okay, So this particular condition you need to remember. Okay, I think we have done with this much part. Up to symmetry we have done. Okay, and quickly after this presentation we are going to have a quick look at the board writing, and then we are going to start with the next lecture that will be for the inflorescence and types of flowers, and so many things are there, but surely we are going to learn them. So let us once again get back to the board and let us revise certain things. As I mentioned, Calyx and Corolla, both they belong to the accessory categories. So once again, Calyx, it is a group of sepals. Sepals usually they appear green in color, and petals usually they are bright colored. Okay. So Calyx, it's a group of sepals. Usually they are green. They protect bud and they perform photosynthesis in the initial phase. There are two major conditions. When sepals are free, they are called as polycepalous condition, and if petals are united, then it is called as gamocepalous condition. Gamo fused, poly free, like this. This is poly condition. This is gamo fused condition. So for your understanding, I have drawn this particular image, this particular drawing. Okay. So don't take it seriously, but consider this particular sepals as a separate. Okay. So they are polycepalous, and this is fused somewhere. Hence it is gamocepalous. This is not the perfect drawing, but just to understand the schematic, I have drawn this. Okay. Let us think about the corolla, another one. Corolla, it's a group of petals, usually brightly colored to attract the pollinators. So this is the major intention behind the beautiful coloration of the petals. Let me tell you one more thing in the flow, that this particular attraction mechanism is not always played by color. There are so many chemicals, or there are so many nectaries which are present in the flower and which opens in a daytime or at a night time, and they attract the pollinators. Pollinators can be anyone. Pollinators can be bees, pollinators can be bumblebees, pollinators can be birds, pollinators can be snakes. I have mentioned these particular categories. In some cases, the particular flower will open its nectary in night time. So in night time, usually the moths are the pollinators. So they always fly in search of the sweet fragrance that is produced by nectaries. Okay, so this is possible, and there are so many interdependent relationship between this pollen and this particular pollen and the pollinators. So that part in due course of time you are going to learn in the biology itself. Once again, poly and fused condition. If petals are free from each other, then it is polypetalous. If it is fused, then it is gamopetalous. Now think about the perianth. I have mentioned this. In perianth, you cannot expect both calyx and corolla, they appear independently. In perianth, the calyx and corolla, they are fused, they show a common structure, okay, which is called as a group of tepals. Individual member of perianth is called as tepal. Yes, tepals. Group of tepals. So these are the members actually. Calyx and corolla are fused together, do not show independent existence. Similar to that of only calyx and only corolla, they never show their independent existence. They are fused. Hence, in case of tuberose, we have seen that picture, we have seen that particular photo, that the base part, which is sessile flower actually, if you remember, which is sessile flower, the bottom part of that particular image is typically green. That means it shows some existence of calyx, and gradually it fuses with the upper part, that is thick fleshy petal part, that becomes that part becomes perianth. So tepals is a member of perianth, and when tepals come together, the entire fuse structure can be seen easily. So I think after this particular second board, we are going to shift to the third board, and which is about essential type of floral buds. In the meanwhile, I would like to say a few more words about this particular Calyx and Corolla. I have talked about petaloid sepal and sepaloid petal. So petaloid sepal, you have seen the sepal structure usually, which is green by color. In some cases, it becomes highly attractive by showing some beautiful coloration. It is possible. In the same case, in the reverse case, I can say the petals which are usually green by color, colorful by color, actually they show green coloration. So it is called as sepaloid petal, a petal which is similar to that of sepal. So this is a petal appearing similar to that of sepal, and sepal appearing similar to that of petal. Both the things are possible. Petaloid sepal, sepaloid petal. Okay. In some cases, bracts are really beautiful, and they are showing even the bracts usually which are green by color. So they are showing bright coloration. In case of Musanda frondosa, it's an example. You can write down the word Musanda, M-U-S-S-A-N-D-A. So that particular plant, it shows colorful bract. Bract is appearing similar to that of leaf, but which is brightly colored, yellow or whitish color, and usually it is sensed by the insects. Okay, so they have hexagonal eyes, right? So this is how the arrangements are there in the nature, and nature always takes care of the member of its own. Okay, so I think after this we can switch to the next board, which is about essential floral buds. So this is the last board and very last part of this particular lecture, and which is about Androsium and Gynosium. So Androsium, a male reproductive part, which is shown with this unique symbol and universally accepted symbol. Then let us think about what is Androsium. It's a group of stamens. What is stamen? Anther plus filament. So I can show it like this. So anther plus filament, that is stamen. It's a group of stamens. Usually anthers are bilobed. So anthers are bilobed. Each lobe has 2 chambers. So total 4 chambers are present, and 4 chambers, they contain megaspore mother cell, and megaspore mother cell under meiosis, it produces microspores, that is pollen grains. One more term you need to remember. Stamen, if it is fertile, then it's okay. If it is sterile, it is called as staminode. Staminode, it is sterile stamen, which is actually which cannot produce the pollen grains. Even though the typical stamen is present, anther lobes are present, filament is present, still there won't be any production of pollen grains. It becomes sterile. Now the terms which are related to the stamens are Petalus. You have seen that image. If you are remembering that image, then it is fine. But I think it is not possible for you to remember each and every image with each and every example. So simply go back to the presentation, or simply try to read the things from the presentation itself. I think PDF is available with you and you can go through it. Okay. So Epipetalus, Epiphyllus, Polyandrous, Syngenesius, Monoadelphus, Diadelphus, Polyadelphus. So there are so many terminologies and so many things. I think your NCERT book is showing Epipetalus, Epiphyllus, Monoadelphus, Polyadelphus, Diadelphus conditions are shown here, and I think the images for the same were considered during the presentation. So this is all about the male reproductive system. Let us think about the female reproductive system. Once again, the typical symbol, Gynosium. It's a group of carpels. What do you mean by carpel? It's a stigma plus style plus ovary. Stigma, it's a disc-like structure where pollen grains can be shedded. Okay. Then style, stylar canal through which the pollen tube passes, and ovary, which contains ovule for the fertilization occurs. There are two major terms, that is Echocarpus and Syncarpus. Echo means the carpels, they remain free from each other, and Syncarpus, syn means joining, fused. The carpels are united, or I can say carpels are fused. That is also possible. Then let us think about this symmetry. What do you think about symmetry? Either symmetry will be there or symmetry will not be there. If symmetry is not present in the flower, if it is of irregular shape, then it becomes asymmetry. For example, canna. गर्दळीचं फूल असतं, आपण पिक्चर बघितलं होतं प्रेझेंटेशन मध्ये राईट मोस्ट जे आहे, that is asymmetry. So this is asymmetric type of flower, and symmetric type of flower means there will be some symmetry. Let there be bilateral symmetry or let there be radial symmetry. So actinomorphic and zygomorphic are the two major types. So this particular actinomorphic, it gives radial type of symmetry. What do you mean by radial type of symmetry? Flower can be cut into two halves along any plane. Along any plane. For example, hibiscus. Refer the presentation. Hibiscus. Hibiscus, if you put axis in this way, this way, this way, this way, anyway, but it should be passing through the center only. Then you can get two equal halves of the flower. It is actinomorphic. Zygomorphic. What do you mean by zygomorphic? Zygomorphic, it's a typical symmetry. You can call it as bilateral. I can write it here. Bilateral symmetry. Zygomorphic flower. Flower can be cut into two equal halves along only one plane. If that plane is passing through a particular point, through a particular angle, then and then you will get two equal halves. If it is slanting or oblique fashion, then definitely it will not be successful. Okay, so this is the major part that we have learned in this particular chapter. You are supposed to recall the terms, you are supposed to learn the terms, and you are supposed to remember the examples. When I say monoadelphous, adelphi condition means attachment. That part you need to understand. Diadelphous means two groups. Polyadelphous means many groups. So this much part you need to understand, this much part you need to recall. Okay. So I think we have done with this particular lecture. And after this, we are going to start with the type of flowers. That is, flowers are epigynous, hypogynous, or perigynous, and various inflorescence types. And then I think seed and fruit we are going to learn. and then finally we are going to end up with this chapter by study of families. Okay, I think yes, one more part I forgot to tell you. Placentation part we are going to learn. Arrangement of ovules is all about placentation. Okay, if centrally it is placed, then it becomes axis wise it is axial. If it is peripheral, then it becomes parietal. It is really simple. Don't get confused. Don't worry about the remembering all the terms. Once you start learning the things through pictures, then definitely you will come to know about specific terminologies. Okay, I think you need to revise these things for a couple of times at least, and then you will be able to master the topic. Okay. Hopefully you are also going to write the assignment which is provided here with. Okay, all the best. Keep working, keep studying, and keep yourself fit. Okay, bye bye.